everyone. Okay, thank you very much. I'm extremely excited here today to be able to speak to the future generation, the future leaders, potential future trendsetters and influencers. And I just want to thank you all to be here to start with. What I want to discuss with you today, what I want to share with you today, what I want to kind of understand with you today is the current challenge that we face as present entrepreneurs in some cases, and as future entrepreneurs in other cases. What we have come to is this weird, twisted setup of the startup community where we are discussing how to start, create a product, and somehow flip it or get funded for it. Anybody understands that part of the thing? Anybody in the entrepreneurial community here, or wants to be an entrepreneur, wants to start a business? Okay, so that's the popular mindset in the startup community, to be able to flip the business as soon as you start, or soon enough after you start. And the traditional side of running a business, which is to start a business and actually grow it, seems to be dying. What I want to share, or what I want to start with, is a little story that started at the age of 18, where I started working with startups and new ventures, and I did that for about 4 or 5 years, pretty decent successfully. And at 23, I decided to start my own company. This was the first venture. I got the venture capitalist, the angel investor, to work in and work with us. And we did okay, but soon to realize that all I was doing was learning this again, the trend of starting something and then flipping it. And that brought me to, what is it that the Apples of the world do? What are these real entrepreneurs who started at a level of $100, $200, do to create these really successful enterprises? So, after 23, once I was done with this venture, I moved on and I started working with people who have actually built those companies. From $100, they started the company, and now are worth millions of dollars themselves individually, not just the companies. So, there was one underlying feature that I realized, or one underlying pattern that was there with almost every successful entrepreneur. And it's beautifully put together by Gary Vaynerchuk in one single line. I don't know how many of you know Gary Vaynerchuk. He's a guy who has built an online empire of $60 million just selling wine on TV. Sorry, on internet, not TV. But he says it beautifully in one line. He says, content is the king, but marketing is the queen, and he's the one that runs the house. It's a very simple line, and I will quote it again. He says, the content is the king, but the marketing is the queen, and queen is the one that runs the house. Before I get into details of that, I want to recognize something. And this is directly associated to the theme of the event today, which is patterns and perceiving patterns. Let us recognize that we as human beings perceive patterns. We understand and try and follow patterns. There was an interesting case study, not so nice, but a very interesting case study that was done several years ago, where there were certain mice put in a box, in different boxes, and they were given electric shocks. It wasn't nice way of doing it, but it did give us a good discovery. They were given electric shocks, and when they would do something in particular, when they would do a particular pattern, they will not get an electric shock. What they realized that mice really quickly picked up on that and figured out what was the pattern. It could be like, go here, do this, and then they will not get, if they turn left, they will not get a shock, if they turn right, they will get a shock. So they very quickly picked up on that. But that's not only true for mice, it's true for human beings too. If you, and it's just funny, I don't know how many of you did that, but in high school, when you would go for an exam, you would wear a particular color of shirt, or in India, where I come from, you would eat yogurt before you have to start something nice, and that's not scientifically making any sense. Scientifically or logically, it doesn't make any sense. But we tend to believe that these things happen because somebody, someday, saw this as a pattern. They saw, oh, every time he ate yogurt, he tended to do well, so he said everybody should do that, and everybody for whatever reason started following it. And it became a superstition that was created because somebody perceived a pattern. So let's recognize that and let's do this together, where let's try and see the pattern that lies between these successful ventures, businesses, and entrepreneurs. Okay? So I want to go in and see what's the first pattern that you could observe with all these entrepreneurs and successful businesses. The first one is the fundamental way that the entrepreneur or the businessman thinks. So very often, as I said in the starting of the talk, it's communicated to us that product is everything. And when you love your product or you love your brand per se, you will have a successful company. And that's a bunch of bullshit. Because what really that these guys think about is they are with their clients. They don't care about the product, they don't care about their brand, they know that is an evolving process. So there is no love for the product, there's only one love, and the love is for the client. So that's the first thing. And if I may, if you think about any of the companies that you can imagine, you will see, and a recent case example could be a company called Zappos. I don't know how many of you heard about it. In about 9 years, the company reached a valuation of $1 billion, was bought over by Amazon, because the only thing, and that's a shoe website, they just sell shoes on a web portal. They shouldn't have a valuation of $1 billion, but their clients loved them so much that they were able to build into a really competitive niche their own brand, per se, which actually was based on clientele, and that was all it really mattered. And that's the first case that you would see with most of the entrepreneurs who are really successful, that they are in love with their clients. Secondly, is something that is called as the old brain, new brain theory. Scientists and researchers have discovered that our minds have evolved into something called the new brain. New brain is where we process the logical side of information, and old brain is where the emotional side of information comes in. What all these entrepreneurs have realized is there is no point speaking to the logical side of the brain. What you need to communicate is the old brain, the emotional side of the brain, because that is what makes people take action. Remember, my first rule for these entrepreneurs, or the pattern that I realized for these entrepreneurs was they love the clients. But remember, the clients are us as well. When was the last time we made a change, somebody pushed us to a corner, that we made a change ourselves? We never do. And that's also these entrepreneurs really believe, is that they love the clients so much that they want to make sure that you make a difference in your life right now. And they will do anything to get you to take the opportunity to buy from them so you can actually change your life, and buy frequently from them as well. And if you will realize, and just for a second, if I could go back to pattern one, think about how all these companies operate. Talk about your favorite companies. It could be Google, it could be Apple, it could be Coke, for crying out loud. All these companies, if you really think about it, if you take a second, you would see all of them have multiple products, almost pitch them to similar kind of audiences, similar types, so they can always keep frequently changing your life in that pattern, that style. That's why the iPhone has an app store, and that app store has apps. So they can frequently allow you to make your life better, and consistently will do that. Now coming back to the second pattern about the old brain. Our old brain responds to particular psychological triggers. And I want to take the opportunity to share a few of them. These are researches not done by me, but geniuses like Simon Sinek, Robert Cialdini, and Jay Abraham. And you can look up their work later after this presentation to understand what these rules really are. But one of the most common, and if you are really following TED, you must have seen Simon's talk, where he talks about why people don't connect to companies, and why do they connect to companies? And the reason, the inbuilt reason for when you connect to a company is because you connect to the reason why of the company. Why is that company doing what they do? And that is also, but the funny thing is that it's not only that the reason why has to be a compelling reason. There was a research again done several years ago where in a high school, in a college, there was a line for making photocopies, and they would send a person to go and say, hey, can I skip the queue? And about 90% of people would say, no, of course you cannot skip the queue because it's a long queue to make photocopies. Then they sent another person, and now the person would say, can I make photocopies because I'm in this urgent need and the university is going to fire me if I don't make copies. 90% of people would let the person skip the queue. There was a reason why. Interesting study. If you give a reason why, it makes sense. But it looks like you need to have a dire reason. And so said, okay, let's test this. So they sent one last person, and this time the person would say, can I skip the queue because I want to make copies? So it's the most dumb reason, because this is a photocopier queue. Of course you want to make copies. About 80%, 70 to 80% people allow the person to skip the queue. So interestingly, it is not about what's your reason why. It's actually just having a reason leads people to join you. They want to follow you. They want to work with you. And this is very important for us as entrepreneurs to understand, because that is how we can connect with all these people that we really want to reach to and make difference in their lives. Another one is something that 50 Cent tried when he probably didn't even know this was a rule. But 50 Cent, when he started his journey as a musician, he started handing out his CDs for free. For anybody he would meet, he would just give a CD and go ahead and say, listen to my tracks. Soon the word reached Eminem, and Eminem got him on board, and soon he became a big guy. But what happened is when he released his first album, people riled up to buy his music. Why did that happen? Because this is called the reciprocity. We as human beings want to reciprocate when somebody has done something for us without any reason, without any point, any drive to get something back from you, is when we want to reciprocate. It's called law of reciprocity, and this is another law that you will see most frequently used by companies. Those are some of them. Because I see I have very little time left, so let me go to the last part that is most seen in successful entrepreneurs, which I want to start with a story by Derek Sivers. He's also a great speaker, a great author. He talks about the story where he went to a class and split his class into two audiences. One would, for the entire semester, work on only one piece of pottery. And another where the entire batch will only work on as many pieces of pottery as they feel like. And when at the end of the semester, all the potteries were put together and externals were called in who were experts in pottery, and they evaluated which pottery was good. Guess which pottery won? The potteries that won were all from the quantity group, not the quality group. Surprising, the people who were trying to perfect their pottery actually never got a good enough pottery that the other set could get, who actually started and kept trying. The lesson in the story is, let's say if you have a gun, you're trying to aim at something. If you keep aiming, you're never going to get the target. What has to happen is you aim, you don't even aim actually, you fire. You see, you learn from that, you fire again, and then you aim again. And that's how you become good at aiming and getting to your target. So there are three primary lessons that I have seen in most successful entrepreneurs. First, you gotta be knowing what you're trying to do. You gotta be able to have that entrepreneurial mindset where it's not only about the product, it is actually about loving your client. Secondly, it's about you need to be able to speak to the old brain. And lastly, don't be afraid to try, because the more you will try, the higher is the success of you becoming successful. Thank you very much.